The name of those two songs are Fortitude of Grievance and Should I Run? And they're from the new album by my special guest today, Nova Scotia singer-songwriter Kristen Martell. The name of her new album is called Every Season, which was released on September the 30th, 2022. Kristen, welcome to the Friday Afternoon Music Mix.
Thank you so much for having me, Greg. It's a pleasure to be here.
I had the fortune of meeting you kind of through a disc jockey forum that introduced me to some of your music, and you had sent me your original released album from 2020, which is called Coming Home. Tell me a little bit about, I know that you kind of got your music career started a little later in your professional career. Tell me how this all came about, because I know you had a career prior to coming into music in 2020.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, music's always been a part of my life. I grew up in a musical family. My grandfather was my earliest influence, we'll say, and I grew up playing piano and later dabbled with other instruments. And only in my 20s did I discover I enjoyed playing the acoustic guitar. Discovered I enjoyed songwriting at that point. Did a lot of songwriting and had aspirations of jumping into the music industry, but never did at that time. And it wasn't until 2018 where I was going through some challenging times personally, and life was just really felt like it was falling apart. Music has always been a healer for me, and so I got back into songwriting in a big way. Then I decided, I remember the day I woke up and saying, life is so short. I had this really strong urge to finally share my music. And I said, I'm going to do it. And I remember I never looked back since that day. And here I am. But I did have quite a big break in there, busy with life, busy with my career, busy with family. But I'm so thankful I've finally jumped in and I'm not going back now.
I can see why. Both of the albums that you sent to me are just fabulous. I loved your first album, and after getting some really good feedback from my listeners, I knew that I was going to have you on the show, and then the timing just worked out for the release of Every Season, and I thought we would kind of coordinate that with your being on the Friday Afternoon Music Mix. You have, in this short period of time that you have entered music professionally, you've gotten quite a few accolades. A couple of them that I want to point out here are the ECMA nominee, 3 Nova Scotia Music nominations. This has all been just since 2020.
Yeah, pretty exciting. ECMAs, it's the East Coast Music Awards, so on the East Coast of Canada here. Yeah, I was very shocked by that one, but super honored to be recognized with my first record. And then Music Nova Scotia as well. I had a folk nomination, inspirational record nomination for my first record. So that was really cool. The third one, which was just this past year, which was a bit of a surprise, I did a remix in June, if you recall. I'm not sure if you aired it on your
I
on
did.
your show.
I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun and way out of my usual repertoire, but it actually got a nomination for Electronic Artist of the Year, which I was blown away. So
That's wonderful.
that's yeah, so that's those awards shows are coming up in November. There's a lot of great artists in that category, so I don't expect but even just being nominated is a huge honor.
It was an amazing song the way you redid that song, and like I said, I played it on my show a couple of times. I really enjoyed it
Awesome.
myself.
Awesome.
I wanted to ask you too that you had a couple of guest artists that I had heard of, but I had not heard their music that I wanted to ask you about. One of them has a
Sure.
great name of Old Man Ludicky, and then Dan Ledwell. Tell me a little bit how
Yeah.
you incorporated them into this second album.
Yeah. Well, Old Man Ludica, if you're not familiar with his stuff, I strongly encourage you to check him out. He's a banjo player, and he's from Nova Scotia, not far from me. And in my early 20s, when I started songwriting and doing the circuit around Nova Scotia, I had first met him, and he just got into the industry then. And his career has just blossomed. It's been really cool to watch him. Like, he performs all over the world, and he's had a few Junos. And so I'm a big banjo fan, but I don't play banjo. When I was thinking about this record and wanting to incorporate some banjo, I said, I'm going to ask Chris, see what he's up to. And I was really honored when he agreed to play on a few songs. And I think he really added to the 2 songs that on the record. It was a lot of fun to have him part of it.
I should point out for our listeners' benefit that The Juno Awards in Canada are very similar, are they not, to our Grammy Awards here in the United States?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Recognition of outstanding Canadian artists, which I think is amazing. I also have
Yeah.
to ask you, I love the new album cover. What was the inspiration for that?
Well, I don't know if you had seen. There's a local photographer here that I just love to work with. Her name's Beatrice Schuler, and she has such a great eye. And there was an old abandoned mall in our community. She'd suggested we set up there because oftentimes there's some water pooling on the concrete, and there's lots of reflections in the background. We shot it last fall, and so there was a lot of colors on the vegetation around as well. Yeah, she just captured some beautiful shots. When I finally decided that this would be a fall album, I had a graphic designer, Paul Atwood, touch up the photo a little bit and make it a little more fall inspired, we'll say. But yeah, it's the songs on the record are really moody, and they've got an orchestral vibe to them, if you've noticed. And so I wanted the album cover to have that moodiness as well, but a bit of a retro vibe also, because I've been hearing from some folks that the songs remind them of 60s 70s ballads, so which I thought was interesting. So that's kind of what we were going for.
I have seen the other photos that were taken there, and you're right, they are outstanding. But I dearly love the album cover. I thought it was just perfect for your new album. It really is.
Thank
Speaking
you
of the
so
new album,
much.
oh, you're quite welcome. Let's do another song. This is from Every Season, and it's called Watch Me Fall.
Leaves shatter beneath my feet, dry and brittle from summer's heat. Feel the sun soft on my face. Autumn's breeze will soon take its place. Watch me fall. The signs of rot in this old dead wood. I go back to the start if only I could. So this young heart carries its old soul to the stone walls it built long ago. Watch me fall. Watch me fall. Crickets hum in perfect time, a warning of what's down the line. This wool is rough against my skin. Where am I going? Where have I been? Watch me fall. Watch me fall. When the stars are tired of the night and the trees flood with signs of life, I'll start again and take my time. Rest and strength on my side. Watch me fall. Watch me fall. Watch me fall in this old dead wood. Watch me fall. Watch me fall and take my time. Watch me fall on my side.
Another beautiful song off of this album, Kristen. You've got some gigs coming up here. I see you're booked right up into April of 2023, but all of them that I've seen so far are in Nova Scotia. Any plans to come to the US at all and tour?
I'd love to. We'll see what happens. First this spring, I'm looking at for 2023. I will do some local shows and probably some shows in other parts of Canada. I'm just starting to plan that now. The U.S. is certainly on my radar. It gets a little complicated, but we'll see. I'm always scouting. I'm always looking for options. Hopefully, a festival will get me down there, and then I can route a tour around something like that. Get an anchor date, and that would be awesome.
Well, I was hoping maybe you might come and do some gigs in British Columbia and then around Vancouver, and we're only, about
Just
40
head
miles.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, just come right down to the studio, and there's some gigs you could play here. I think you'd be well received. I really do.
Oh, I'd love that. You're planting a seed. I haven't been back to BC in a while.
Good.
I did my undergrad in BC, Victoria. Royal Roads, the place was called, and I'd look over and see the mountains in Seattle. It's just a beautiful spot. Yeah, I'd love to get back there.
Oh, there's lots of places that would love your music here. I can introduce you to some of them too if you come back this way again. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll hold you to that.
Okay, that sounds good. My special guest today is Nova Scotia singer-songwriter Kristen Martell. She has a new album that came out at the end of September called Every Season. It's fantastic. I've been playing a lot of songs from her earlier album, which was released in 2020. Have had a lot of good feedback, so I was really excited about the music that I'm going to be able to play from this coming forward. I wanted to ask you just real quickly before I let you go, can you tell me a little bit? I know you have a very interesting career before you came in to be a professional musician. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what your background is? I know you've got a good education and you worked in some very important work.
Yeah, I have an environmental management background. Earlier, I did a lot of like remedial work. Then I worked for government for most of my career as an environmental enforcement officer. So quite a change from today. I spent a lot of time just making sure people and industries were, following their permits or treating the environment properly. I'm so thankful for that experience that I had. I got to learn very quickly about dealing with confrontation and difficult people and stressful situations and also just the way the world works. Like there was a lot of just construction and development I'd be involved in from the get-go, so really cool work. And then I got out of government and worked with a power corporation, making sure that they were legal and that they were trained and dealing with environmental emergencies properly and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it was interesting. And I, may someday get back into that, but I did pause my career after I had children. I just found it very difficult to be a mom. A lot of different places, had to travel a lot of emergency response, and it was just very difficult to juggle with a very young family. So I put that aside in 2015.
Wow.
It's coming on. Yeah.
And then 2020, your first album, which is great.
Yeah, so as my
Super.
kids got older, I was looking for something to do, looking for a different business, but then, had some challenges, as I said earlier, and then music kept coming back into my life. And I said, I'm going to jump into this. I'm so glad I did.
I am too. And I'm certainly glad that we got acquainted so that I could play your music on my show. And let's point out again, the first release in 2020 is Coming Home. Kristen's sophomore release, which came out on the end of September of 2022, is called Every Season and is quite beautiful. Her website is Kristen Martell, and let me spell that, KristenMartell.com. Facebook is Kristen Martell Music. Twitter is Martell Kristen. Instagram, also Kristen Martell Music. You can find out a lot about her, listen to her music, and see some beautiful photos that have been taken in there for her new album. Enjoy her music. You have some gigs, but they're all in Nova Scotia for now. We'll see what we can do about getting you down into the States and get you there. Kristen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today and finally get to meet and talk with you in person as we've been communicating for some time now. I wish you all the best, and you have an open invitation to come down into the studio if you ever get back to BC and put you on the air acoustically live on our show, and that would be a lot of fun.
I'd love that. That'll happen someday. I'm sure of it.
I look forward to it. Let's go out with a third song of your choice from this beautiful new album, and it's called Photograph of Seekers. Does that sound good?
That's good. Thank you so much.